Just a few minutes ago, a federal judge ordered former Trump advisor Steve Bannon to report to prison by July 1st to serve his 4-month prison sentence. Bannon was hoping to stay out of prison as he appealed his conviction for contempt of Congress. CNN's Sarah Murray is following the story from the courthouse. Sarah, tell us how this all went down.
Well, it seemed like a big surprise to Steve Bannon and his attorneys that federal judge Carl Nichols said that Steve Bannon will have to begin serving his sentence. He has to self-surrender by July 1st. Remember, it was July of 2022 that Steve Bannon was found guilty of 2 counts of contempt of Congress by a jury. The judge that year sentenced him to 4 months behind bars, but said he could stay free pending an appeal of his conviction. Well, they discussed that appeal in the hearing today, and the judge said, look, the appeals court wholeheartedly disagreed with the legal arguments that Bannon and his team were making. He said he was not going to put off this sentence any longer, and he said it's time for Steve Bannon to report to prison. And there was a heated moment at the end of this hearing where Steve Bannon's attorney was sort of trying to urge the judge to reconsider. The judge was not very pleased with how that exchange was going, how he was being talked to. Unsurprisingly, Bannon still gave off a defiant air as he left the courthouse today. Take a listen to what he said.
All of this is about one thing. This is about shutting down the MAGA movement, shutting down grassroots conservatives, shutting down President Trump. Not only are we winning, we are going to prevail, and every number and every poll shows that. There's nothing that can shut me up and nothing that will shut me up.
Now, Bannon is not totally out of options. He could seek emergency relief from the appeals court, from the U.S. Supreme Court, but obviously a very tight time frame for another court to intervene before that July 1st surrender date, Boris.
Yeah, unclear what grounds the Supreme Court would grant him that. Sarah Murray, live outside the courthouse. Thank you so much.
You see outside a federal courthouse here in Washington. That is Steve Bannon with his attorney speaking after a federal judge just ordered Steve Bannon to report to prison on July 1st. Donald Trump's former top advisor was convicted of contempt of Congress in 2022, and his sentence is 4 months in prison, which now, 2 years later, he will begin actually serving. My panel is back here with me. This is very much directly related to what we were talking about before the break, which is the claims of the weaponization of the Biden Justice Department, which there is absolutely no evidence to back up. But maybe more importantly, the promise/threat that by people like Steve Bannon just a couple of days ago on his podcast or radio show, that if Donald Trump is elected again, they will seek retribution with the courts and with the DOJ.
Right. Steve Bannon has been very outspoken about this. He's been candid about this. He has said Republican prosecutors at this point should be making a name for themselves. That's why he texted my colleagues on Tuesday by prosecuting Democratic prosecutors. This is very clear, and it comes from the words of some of Trump's very allies. It's not just accusations.
Right. I mean, he did say, I think it's the conversation that you're referring to, that he is calling for a, quote, purge of the Justice Department if Donald Trump wins election this November. And, you know, this Steve Bannon is not someone who's necessarily in daily contact with Donald Trump anymore, but he still carries so much influence in that sort of MAGA world that when you see that kind of rhetoric and those and that coming from coming from someone like Bannon, you know that is a view that has, you know, that is in a lot of part of the right.
And it's not just view, it's actually just quickly action. I mean, he was the one who said explicitly what was going to happen on January 6th publicly before it happened.
It did. And it's not just Steve Bannon. Stephen Miller, who also was formerly in the Trump administration, who could very well end up in a second one. And Donald Trump himself has said that he wants to install loyalists across the board, whether it's at the Justice Department or other agencies. So that way he has yes men around him and he can do whatever he wants, be it going after President Joe Biden or other Democrats.